All right, everyone, here we go. It is time for Act 1, Scene 2 of Romeo and Juliet. Second video of the day. Thought this was a good way to break it up. We didn't quite finish Scene 2 in class today, but we only had like 20 lines left. So I figured it makes sense to just put it all into the same video. If you're following along in your textbook, as you should be, Act 2, Scene 2 begins, let's see, whoops, missed it. There we go. Act 1, excuse me. Act 1, Scene 2 begins at the very bottom of page 13, and then we move forward. As always, remember that the line numbers in the book are slightly different than the line numbers you're seeing on the screen. That's okay. Just some different counting, and that's fine. When we write about the book, we'll use the line numbers that are in the actual book, not the ones that are in the video. So as we move on, Romeo and Benvolio exit the scene, and we get Lord Capulet, County Paris, and a serving man. In your book, the servant's name is Peter, and so I will call him that as we go through this, just to keep it consistent with what you're seeing here. We got to talk about who these people are, though. We know that Lord Capulet is Juliet's father. He is the head of that one family, the Capulet family. Paris is the most eligible bachelor in all of Verona, okay? So women want him, men want to be him, and what he wants is to marry Juliet. He's good looking, he's rich, he's everything that you would want. And as he asks Lord Capulet here in this scene, Lord Capulet isn't quite ready to agree just yet, okay? You can see right now at the very beginning of the scene that Lord Capulet is talking about the fight and saying, you know, we're old men. It shouldn't be too hard for us to keep the peace. And Paris is like, yeah, okay. But what about Juliet? All right. So that's where we start out here at the very beginning of this scene. And we'll talk about why Lord Capulet is a little bit hesitant. So listen in, here we go.
A street. Enter Capulet, Paris, and servant.
But Montague is bound as well as I, in penalty alike. 'Tis not hard, I think, for men so old as we to keep the peace.
Of honorable reckoning are you both, and pity 'tis you lived at odds so long. But now, my lord, what say you to my suit?
But saying all what I have said before, my child is yet a stranger in the world. She hath not seen the change of 14 years. Let 2 more summers wither in their pride, ere we may think her right to be a bride.
Younger than she are happy mothers made.
And too soon marred are those so early made.
All right, couple of things to mention here. First of all, now, my lord, what say you to my suit? And Lord Capulet tells him what he has said before. So this isn't the first time he's had to explain it to Paris. My child is yet a stranger in the world. Juliet is too young, he says. And here we get her age. She has not seen the change of 14 years. She hasn't seen the change of 14 years, so she's not 14 yet. What we'll learn in the next scene is that she's almost 14. Her birthday is in just a few weeks, but she's 13 years old. And Lord Capulet says, let's give it 2 more years, 2 more summers, then you can marry her, then she'll be old enough. And Paris fires right back, younger than she are happy mothers made. And that's true, Lord Capulet says, but too soon marred are those so early made. That word marred means damaged. So he says, yeah, there are women who are made mothers younger than Juliet, but it's not good for them. It damages them, okay? As Lord Capulet continues this speech, he gives another reason that he's not super excited about Juliet being married, but then he also gives Paris a little bit of an in, a little bit of a like, hey, but here's a loophole, okay? So let's listen to the next several lines, and then we'll pause again to talk about it.
The earth hath swallowed all my hopes but she. She is the hopeful lady of my earth. But woo her, gentle Paris, get her heart. My will to her consent is but a part, and she agree, within her scope of choice lies my consent. and fair recording voice.
All right, so there it is. In this day, a couple of things historically. Paris is the same age, similar age as all of the young men in this play. So he's in that like 15 to 20 range, maybe more like 15 to 18. And yes, he's looking to marry Juliet, who's 13. Remember a couple of things. Number one, it wasn't weird back then. Okay, it's weird to us to hear those numbers, but people married much younger and people didn't live as long. So not weird at all. That's not a thing that they would have worried about. Thing number two, Lord Capulet in this says, "Earth hath swallowed all my hopes but she." So when he says earth hath swallowed all my hopes, the footnote in your book says hopes means children in this context. So earth has swallowed all of my children but she. He also doesn't want Juliet to marry just yet because she's his only living child at this point. But he gives Paris a loophole. Woo her, gentle Paris, get her heart. My will to her consent is but a part. Flirt with her, get to know her. If she falls in love with you, if you get her heart, well, my will is only a part of this whole thing. What I want as the father, he says, is only a part of it. It's her consent that's more important. So if she really wants to marry Paris, then Lord Capulet will let her. Then in it's line 20, actually in both places, in line 20, he has an invitation for Paris. So pay attention to what he's inviting Paris to and why. We'll go quite a bit here before we pause again. Here we go.
This night I hold an old accustomed feast, whereto I have invited many a guest, such as I love. And you among the store, one more, most welcome makes my number more. At my poor house, look to behold this night, earth-treading stars that make dark heaven light. Such comfort as do lusty young men feel when well-apparelled April on the heel of limping winter treads. Even such delight among fresh female buds shall you this night inherit at my house. Hear all see, and like her most, whose merit most shall be. Which among view of many, mine, being one, may stand in number, though in reckoning none. Come, go with me.
All right. So if you caught it, Lord Capulet is having a party tonight at his house at the Capulet Mansion. And he's now inviting Paris to come to the party. Why? Well, all of these other young women from Verona are going to be there. Okay. He says, hear all see, and like her most, whose merit most shall be, which on more view of many, mine being one, may stand in number, though in reckoning none. So he's saying that all of these women will be there, including Juliet. And once you look at all of them, maybe there'll be somebody there who you like more than Juliet. Maybe there'll be somebody who catches your eye and you'll change your mind. Okay. So an invitation, and you'll notice this is the same advice that Benvolio gave to Romeo in the last scene. Okay. Examine other beauties, look at other girls, think about it, and then maybe you'll change your mind. Okay. So he turns to the serving man, and remember that in your book, they give the servant a name. His name is Peter, according to the book. So he gives Peter this list, and it's a list of people to invite to the party. Okay. He gives it to Peter, but Peter has a problem. He can't read. So we get this little comic relief from Peter, the serving man, where he's listing these different types of jobs and the materials they need to do their jobs, but he gets them all mixed up. And then he says, I must to the learned, meaning I must find someone who can read to read this letter out loud to me so that I'll know who to invite. Okay, so here we go.
Go, Sirrah, trudge about through fair Verona. Find those persons out whose names are written there.
Gives a paper.
And to them say, my house and welcome on their pleasure stay.
Exit Capulet and Paris.
Find them out whose names are written here. It is written that the shoemaker should meddle with his yard, and the tailor with his last, the fisher with his pencil, and the painter with his nets. But I am sent to find those persons whose names are here writ, and can never find what names the writing person hath here writ. I must to the learned in good time.
Enter Benvolio.
And good time indeed, because here come two people who are rich, high status. I bet they know how to read. It's Benvolio and Romeo. Benvolio is still trying to convince Romeo that it's going to be okay. Just find a new girl and then you'll forget about her. Romeo is still sad, dramatic, etc. And as he's winding up to give another like dramatic, sad speech, he almost literally runs into Peter on stage, who's looking for someone who can read.
And Romeo.
Tut, man. One fire burns out another's burning. One pain is lessened by another's anguish. Turn giddy and be holp by backward turning. One desperate grief cures with another's languish. Take thou some new infection to thy eye, and the rank poison of the old will die.
Your plantain leaf is excellent for that.
For what, I pray thee?
For your broken shin.
Why, Romeo, art thou mad?
Not mad, but bound more than a madman is. Shut up in prison, kept without my food, whipped and tormented and... Good den, good fellow.
God give good den. I pray, sir, can you read?
Aye, mine own fortune in my misery.
Perhaps you have learned it without book. But I pray, can you read anything you see?
Aye, if I know the letters and the language.
You say honestly, rest you merry.
Stay, fellow. I can read.
All right, so the joke here is that Peter, the serving man, he misunderstands what Romeo says here. He asks, can you read anything you see? And Romeo says, well, yeah, if I know the language. And the serving man says, oh, all right, well, see you later. Romeo grabs him, stay, I can read. And he reads the letter. It's the list of people to invite to the party. It's all these beautiful Italian names. There are a couple that are worth pointing out. And so since we can see the whole list here on the screen, I'll just mention those before he reads the list. We see down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down here, it says Mercutio and his brother Valentine. We don't meet Valentine in this play, but Mercutio becomes really important. Mercutio is the third best friend. Okay, so you've got Romeo, Benvolio, and Mercutio. He's not a Montague, which we know because he's invited to the party. He's actually related to Prince Aeschylus. So he's well known by people in both families and throughout Verona, and he's invited to the party. Then 2 lines down from that, my fair niece Rosaline and Livia, okay? Rosaline, as we're about to find out in the next scene, I believe, maybe 2 scenes, Rosaline is the girl that Romeo is in love with, the girl that Romeo likes. And so when Romeo hears that name, his ears perk up a little bit, right? Well, my friend Mercutio is going to be there. And Rosaline, the girl that I like, is going to be there. And then in the next line, again, we see Tybalt. You'll remember him from scene 1, how much he hated Benvolio. He hates Romeo even more. So keep that in mind as we get toward the party. So here we go. Let's hear the list from Romeo, and we'll read all the way through to just after Peter exits, the servant exits, and then Benvolio has 1 more line.
Reads.
Signor Martino and his wife and daughters. County Anselmo and his beauteous sisters. The lady widow of Vitruvio. Signor Placencio and his lovely nieces. Mercutio and his brother Valentine. Mine uncle Capulet, his wife and daughters, my fair niece Rosaline, Livia, Signor Valencio and his cousin Tybalt, Lucio and the lively Helena. A fair assembly.
Gives back the paper.
Whither should they come?
Up
Whither?
to supper, to our house,
Whose house?
my master's.
Indeed, I should have asked you that before.
Now I'll tell you without asking. My master is the great rich Capulet. And if you be not of the house of Montagues, I pray, come and crush a cup of wine. Rest you merry.
All right, he exits. And you'll notice what Peter just did here. He invited Romeo and Benvolio to the party. Yeah, he said, if you're not a Montague, but he opened the door, right? This gives Benvolio a great idea.
Exit.
At this same ancient feast of Capulets sups the fair Rosaline, whom thou so lovest, with all the admired beauties of Verona. Go thither, and with unattainted eye compare her face with some that I shall show, and I will make thee think thy swan a crow.
When the
All right, Benvolio's got a great idea here, right? Hey, at this party, Rosaline's going to be there with all the other admired beauties of Verona. So let's go there. And then as you're looking at all of these girls, compare Rosaline's to the others. I'll show you, okay? He says, and I will make thee think thy swan a crow. Rosaline is Romeo's swan, but Benvolio says when you see her up next to all these others, she's going to be more like a crow than a swan at that point. Romeo is extra dramatic. The all-seeing sun never saw her match, he says. And then Benvolio reiterates, yeah, but you've never like compared her to all these other girls. So let's continue that.
Vowed religion of mine eye maintain such falsehood, then turn tears to fires. And these, who often drowned, could never die, transparent heretics be burned for liars. One fairer than my love? The all-seeing sun ne'er saw her match since first the world begun.
Tut, you saw her fair, none else being by, herself poised with herself in either eye. But in that crystal scales, let there be weighed your lady's love against some other maid, that I will show you shining at this feast, and she shall scant show well that now shows best.
I'll go along, no such sight to be shown, but to rejoice in splendor of my own.
All right. So at the end here, Romeo says, okay, fine. I'll go to the party. If you really want me to, I'll go, but I'm not going there so you can show me all these other girls. I'm going to rejoice in splendor of mine own. I'm going there so that I can see Rosaline. I'm not going there to meet anybody else. Okay. They exit. That's the end of scene 2. And as scene 3 begins, we've got Lady Capulet, and we're going to meet the nurse for the first time. We'll talk about her tomorrow. We'll explain that in the next video. And we will also get to meet Juliet for the first time tomorrow. So you can look forward to that. Thank you so much for watching. Hope this is helpful. Make it a great day. See you soon.